The most important message of her life was the one she never meant to send. The screen of Emily Carter's phone glowed in the darkness of her small apartment. It was almost midnight, the kind of night when the world became quiet, but a worried mind became even louder. Emily sat at her kitchen table, staring at the same number she had been looking at for the past 10 minutes. The rent notice was beside her. The calendar on the wall showed the date approaching faster than she wanted. And in the other room, her little daughter Lily was sleeping peacefully. That was the hardest part, knowing that her child could sleep safely, because Emily had spent every day trying to make sure the world felt safe. Even when she did not feel safe herself. Emily was 29 years old, a single mother who had learned how to stretch every dollar, every meal, and every moment. She knew how to turn simple groceries into several dinners. She knew how to smile when she was exhausted. She knew how to say, "Everything will be okay," even when she was not completely sure, because Lily was watching. And Emily wanted her daughter to grow up believing that kindness and hope still existed. But tonight, Emily was tired. Not the kind of tired that disappeared after a few hours of sleep. The kind of tired that came from carrying responsibilities alone for too long. She looked around the apartment, the small kitchen, the second-hand furniture, the neatly folded baby clothes sitting on a chair. Everything reminded her of how hard she had worked to build a home for her daughter. It was not perfect, but it was theirs. Emily picked up her phone again. She opened a message thread. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She hated asking for help. That was something she had always struggled with. She had spent so much time proving she could handle everything herself. But sometimes life placed people in moments where pride had to step aside. She slowly typed, "Hi, I am sorry to bother you. I am in a difficult situation and I need help with my rent this month. I would not ask unless I truly had no other option. I hope you understand." Emily stared at the message. Her heart felt heavy. She did not want sympathy. She did not want anyone to think she was careless. She only wanted a little time, a little breathing room, a chance to keep the life she had worked so hard to create. She took a deep breath. Then she pressed send. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Emily noticed something. The name at the top of the conversation. Her eyes widened. The number was wrong. Completely wrong. Her stomach tightened. Oh no. She immediately reached for the phone, hoping there was a way to delete the message. But it was already gone. Delivered. Emily closed her eyes. Of all the mistakes she could have made, this was the one she never wanted. She imagined a stranger reading her words. A stranger judging her. A stranger wondering why she had sent such a personal message to them. She placed the phone down and covered her face with her hands. For a few seconds she just sat there. Then she looked toward Lily's room and quietly whispered, "I am trying, sweetheart." Because that was the truth. Emily was trying. Every single day. She did not know who had received that message. She did not know that the person looking at her words was not a stranger living an ordinary life. She did not know that the phone number belonged to a man whose name appeared in business magazines across America. A billionaire CEO. A man surrounded by success, influence, and everything money could provide. But at that moment, he was not reading a business proposal. He was reading a message from a mother who simply needed someone to notice. And without knowing it, Emily Carter had just reached someone who was about to change the meaning of one simple word. Help. The next morning arrived quietly. But for Emily Carter, the weight of the previous night was still sitting on her shoulders. The apartment was filled with the soft sounds of a new day. A small laugh from Lily. The sound of a coffee machine warming up. The gentle movement of Emily preparing breakfast while trying to remember everything she needed to do. To anyone looking from the outside, it was an ordinary morning. But Emily knew better. Every morning carried a list. Work, bills, appointments, groceries, and above everything else, her daughter. Lily sat in her high chair, reaching for a small piece of fruit while Emily smiled at her. "You are my reason, you know that?" Emily whispered. Lily did not understand the words, but she smiled anyway, and somehow that was enough. Emily had always believed that motherhood was made of small moments. The tiny hands reaching for hers. The sleepy smiles after waking up. The quiet hugs at the end of a difficult day. Those moments were priceless. even when everything else felt uncertain. After breakfast, Emily checked her phone. For a second, she forgot about the message she had sent the night before. Then she saw the conversation. The unfamiliar number. The message marked as delivered. Her heart sank again. She quickly opened it. No reply. A small part of her felt relieved. Maybe the person had not seen it. Maybe the mistake would simply disappear. That was what she hoped. Because Emily did not want anyone to know how close she was to struggling. She did not want anyone to see the moments when she felt unsure. She wanted to be remembered as a good mother, not as someone who needed help. But life had a way of showing people that strength did not always mean standing alone. Across the city, in a completely different world, the message remained open on another phone. Inside a modern office high above the streets, the billionaire CEO sat behind his desk. The view outside showed the success he had spent years building. A skyline filled with opportunities. A company built from determination. A name recognized by investors and business leaders across the country. But the message on his screen was unlike anything he usually received. No business request. No proposal. No attempt to gain his attention. Just a few honest words from someone who was struggling. The CEO read the message again. Not because of the request. Because of the way it was written. The apology before the question. The hesitation before asking. The feeling that the person behind the screen was more worried about being a burden than about her own situation. That detail stayed with him. He had spent years surrounded by people asking for more. More money. More opportunities. More success. But this message was different. It was not demanding. It was almost afraid to exist. He leaned back in his chair and looked at the phone. For a moment, the busy world around him disappeared. The meetings waiting on his calendar. The reports waiting on his desk. The constant expectations attached to his name. All of it became quiet. Because behind this simple message was a person. A real person. Someone who had reached out when she had no other choice. The CEO looked at the number. Unknown. No contact name. No information. Just a stranger. Normally, he would have ignored it. That was what his schedule demanded. That was what his life had trained him to do. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the honesty. Maybe it was the courage it took to admit she needed help. Or maybe it was because, beneath all the success around him, he understood something about feeling alone. He picked up his phone. His fingers moved toward the keyboard. Then he paused. Because he realized something unexpected. For the first time in a long time, someone was not asking him for a business decision. Someone was asking him for a human response. And that difference mattered. Meanwhile, Emily continued her morning without knowing what was happening. She packed Lily's bag. She cleaned the small kitchen. She prepared herself for another day of trying her best. She believed the mistake was over. A message sent to the wrong person. A moment of embarrassment. Nothing more. But somewhere across the city, the person who received that message was about to make a choice. A choice that would prove sometimes the smallest words can reach the places where people need them most. The message remained on the billionaire CEO's phone longer than he expected. Not because it was complicated. Not because it contained important information. But because it felt different. In his world, every message usually came with an expectation attached. A business partner wanted approval. An executive needed a decision. An investor wanted results. Everything had a purpose. Everything had a price. But this message was different. It was simply a person admitting that life had become difficult. The CEO looked at the words again. The apology. The hesitation. The quiet honesty behind every sentence. He could almost imagine the person on the other side of the phone. Someone sitting alone. Someone who had probably rewritten the message several times before finally pressing send. And that thought stayed with him. Across the city, Emily Carter continued her day without knowing that a stranger was thinking about her. She dropped Lily off with a trusted caregiver before heading to work. The morning was busy. Customers needed attention. Tasks needed to be completed. There was always something waiting. But Emily moved through the day the way she always did. Quietly. Patiently. With a strength that came from necessity. During her break, she checked her phone again. Still nothing. She told herself that was a good thing. Maybe the person had ignored it. Maybe the mistake would disappear. But deep down, Emily felt embarrassed. She imagined someone reading her message and thinking the worst. That she was irresponsible. That she should have planned better. That she should have figured everything out on her own. Those thoughts were familiar. Because Emily had carried them for a long time. The world often admired people after they succeeded. But it rarely saw the moments when they struggled quietly before reaching that point. Emily had never wanted anyone to feel sorry for her. She only wanted to create a stable life for Lily. A safe place. A happy childhood. A future where her daughter never had to wonder if she was loved. That was enough. Back in the city, the CEO finally made a decision. He picked up his phone. His assistant noticed him looking at the screen. "Is everything all right, sir?" He looked up. "Yes." A small pause followed. "Actually, I am not sure yet." His assistant was surprised. The CEO was known for being certain, decisive, focused. He rarely questioned himself. But this was not a business decision. It was something much simpler. How do you respond to someone who is not asking for money, but asking not to be forgotten? He began typing, then stopped. He removed the first version. Sounded too formal, too distant, too much like a company response. This was not a transaction. This was a conversation. Finally, he wrote something simple. "Are you okay?" He looked at the message before sending it. 4 words. Nothing impressive. Nothing that would appear in a business report. Nothing that would make headlines. But sometimes the smallest words carried the most meaning. He pressed send. At the same moment, Emily's phone rested beside her while she finished her work. A few minutes passed. Then the screen lit up. A notification appeared. Her heart skipped slightly. She expected anger, confusion, maybe a message asking why she had contacted the wrong person. Instead, she saw 4 words. "Are you okay?" Emily stared at the screen. She read it again. And again, because that was not the response she expected. She expected someone to focus on the money, the problem, the mistake. But this person asked about her. Not her rent, not her situation, her. For a moment, Emily did not know how to answer. She looked around the quiet break room. Then she thought about Lily, about all the days she had told herself she had to be strong. Maybe this was not about needing someone to fix her life. Maybe this was simply a moment where someone had noticed she was carrying a lot. Slowly, Emily typed a reply. "Thank you for asking. I am okay. I am just having a difficult month." She paused, then added, "I am sorry again. I did not mean to send that message to you." Across the city, the CEO read her response. And for the first time that day, he smiled. Because the woman behind the message was exactly what he had sensed. Someone who was struggling, but still more concerned about being polite than about her own problems. 2 strangers, 2 completely different lives, connected by one accidental message. And now, for the first time, they were no longer strangers. The conversation continued for several days. At first, Emily told herself it was only a temporary exchange. A stranger had answered a message that was never meant for him. A few kind words had been shared. That was all. But somehow, those small conversations became something she looked forward to. Not because she expected anything. Not because she wanted something from him. But because for the first time in a long time, Emily had someone who asked about her day. Someone who did not immediately ask what she could provide. Someone who simply listened. Every evening after Lily fell asleep, Emily would sit at her kitchen table with a warm cup of tea and look at her phone. The apartment was quiet. The lights were soft. And for a few minutes, the weight of the day felt lighter. The messages were simple. "How was your day? Did Lily have a good morning? Did you remember to take some time for yourself?" Small questions, but meaningful ones. Because Emily had almost forgotten what it felt like for someone to care about the person behind the responsibilities. Meanwhile, the billionaire CEO found himself doing something unexpected. He was looking forward to those conversations too. His days were still filled with meetings, important decisions, long hours. But now, somewhere between business calls and financial reports, there was a small moment of honesty waiting for him. A message from someone who did not know his reputation. A person who did not care about his company's value. Emily only knew him as the stranger who asked if she was okay, and that changed something. One evening, the CEO sat in his office after another long day. The city below was bright with thousands of lights. Usually, he would have been reviewing reports or preparing for another meeting. Instead, he looked at the message thread. He smiled slightly. It was strange. A woman he had never met had become the most genuine conversation he had experienced in years. He decided to ask something he normally would never ask. What is something that makes you happy? Emily read the message while sitting beside Lily's bed. She looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully. Then she smiled. She typed, "Little things." The CEO looked at the answer. Like what? Emily thought for a moment. Like hearing Lily laugh in the morning, making a meal she enjoys, watching her learn something new. Moments where I realize that all the hard days are worth it. The CEO read the message carefully, because those words were different from everything he heard in his world. People often talked about achievements, goals, growth, success. But Emily talked about moments, the kind of moments money could never create. He replied, "That sounds like a good life." Emily looked at the screen. Then she answered, "It is. It is just not always an easy one." That sentence stayed with him, because it was honest. She was not pretending everything was perfect. She was not asking anyone to feel sorry for her. She was simply acknowledging reality while still finding reasons to be grateful. The next morning, Emily received another message. "Do you have a plan for the rent situation?" She stared at the question. Her first instinct was to avoid answering. She did not want the conversation to change. She did not want him to see her as a problem. But after a moment, she decided to be honest. "I am trying to figure it out. I have a few days left." The CEO looked at those words. Few days. That was all the time she had. He could solve the problem instantly. One payment, one transfer, one simple action. But something stopped him, because he understood now. Emily was not searching for someone to remove every difficulty from her life. She wanted the chance to handle her life with dignity. So instead of offering money immediately, he asked, "What would help you feel like you could breathe again?" Emily stared at the message, a question she had never expected. Not what do you need? Not how much does it cost? But what would help you breathe? She placed the phone down for a moment, because somehow those words reached deeper than any offer of money ever could. And on opposite sides of the city, two people from completely different worlds sat quietly with the same realization. Sometimes people do not need someone to take away every challenge. Sometimes they just need someone to remind them they are not facing it alone. The next morning, Emily woke up before her alarm. For a few seconds, she simply stayed still. The apartment was quiet. Lily was sleeping peacefully in the next room. The soft morning light came through the window, touching the small kitchen where Emily had spent countless hours preparing meals, organizing bills, and trying to build a better life. It was an ordinary morning, but something felt different. Emily looked at her phone. There was a new message waiting. "Good morning. I hope today is a little easier for you." She smiled. A small smile, the kind that appeared before she even realized it, because those words meant something. Not because they solved her problems. They did not. But because someone remembered. Someone cared enough to check. Emily typed back, "Good morning. Thank you. I hope your day is good too." She paused, then added, "I appreciate you listening." Across the city, the billionaire CEO read her message while preparing for another busy day. His office was already active. Assistants moving between meetings. Executives discussing plans. Phones ringing. The world around him was moving quickly, but he remained focused on a simple conversation. He looked at Emily's words. "I appreciate you listening." That sentence stayed with him, because listening was something he had forgotten how to do. In his world, conversations were usually about solutions, numbers, strategies, results. People came to him expecting answers. But Emily had reminded him that sometimes people did not need an immediate solution. Sometimes they needed to feel understood first. Later that afternoon, the CEO attended a major company meeting. The room was filled with experienced executives. Everyone waited for his decision. A few years earlier, he would have entered the room already knowing exactly what he wanted to say. But today he noticed something different. He noticed the people. The tired employee reviewing notes. The assistant quietly organizing documents. The team members carrying responsibilities that nobody talked about. For the first time in a long time, he wondered how many people around him were silently struggling. Just like Emily. Just like the person behind that message. Meanwhile, Emily was facing another difficult moment. She sat at her kitchen table after Lily fell asleep. The rent deadline was getting closer. She opened her bank account. The number on the screen made her heart sink. She closed her eyes for a moment. Not because she was giving up. Because she was tired of always calculating. Always adjusting. Always wondering what she had to sacrifice next. Then her phone received another message. Have you eaten today? Emily looked at the screen. She laughed softly. Not because the question was funny. Because it was unexpected. Of all the things he could have asked, he asked that. I had coffee, she replied. A few seconds later, another message appeared. Coffee is not a meal. Emily smiled. It was such a simple response. But somehow it felt comforting. She typed, You sound like my mother. The CEO smiled when he read it. I will take that as a compliment. For a moment, two people from completely different worlds shared something ordinary. A small joke. A simple conversation. A moment without titles. Without expectations. Without distance. Emily still did not know who he was. She did not know that the person reminding her to eat breakfast was a man whose decisions affected a massive company. She only knew him as someone kind. Someone patient. Someone who treated her like she mattered. And the CEO still did not know everything about Emily's life. But he knew enough. He knew she was someone who kept going even when things were difficult. Someone who carried responsibility without asking for attention. Someone who had every reason to become bitter, but chose kindness instead. That evening, he looked again at the message that started everything. The wrong number. The unexpected request. The conversation that should never have happened. And he realized something. Sometimes life does not introduce people through perfect moments. Sometimes it begins with a mistake. A small accident. A message sent to the wrong person. And sometimes, that is exactly how the right connection begins. The conversation between Emily and the unknown man continued quietly. Neither of them expected it to become part of their daily routine, but somehow it did. A few messages in the morning. A few words during a busy afternoon. A simple conversation before the day ended. It was never about anything extraordinary, and maybe that was exactly why it mattered. Emily was used to conversations where she had to explain herself. Explain why she was tired. Explain why things were difficult. Explain why she needed more time. But with him she never felt like she had to defend her situation. She could simply be Emily. A mother. Person. Someone trying her best. One evening, Emily sat on the couch while Lily played beside her. The apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that made a person think. She looked at the phone in her hand. A few weeks ago, she would never have imagined talking this often with someone she accidentally contacted, especially someone she knew nothing about. She did not know his last name. She did not know where he lived. She did not know why a stranger would spend time listening to her problems. But she knew one thing. He was kind, and kindness was something Emily never forgot. Across the city, the billionaire CEO sat in his office long after most employees had gone home. The building was almost silent. The lights from the city reflected against the windows. For years, he had considered this place a symbol of everything he had achieved. A reminder of hard work, discipline, success. But lately, he had started seeing it differently. A large office did not make someone feel less alone. A successful career did not answer every question. And having everything did not always mean having what truly mattered. His phone lit up. A message from Emily. Lily learned a new word today. He smiled. What word? A moment later, her reply appeared. Sunshine. The CEO looked at the message. Such a simple word. But he could imagine the scene. A child learning something new. A mother celebrating a small moment. A family finding happiness in ordinary things. He typed, That sounds like a good day. Emily answered, It was. Then, after a short pause, another message appeared. Thank you for reminding me to notice those moments." The CEO stared at the screen because he realized something. Emily believed he was helping her, but she was helping him too. She was showing him a world he had almost forgotten, a world where success was not only measured by achievements, where happiness could exist in small places, where a simple word from a child could mean more than a room full of applause. The next day, Emily faced another difficult conversation. Her landlord had given her more time, but the uncertainty remained. She sat at the kitchen table, looking at the numbers in front of her. She wanted to solve everything herself. That instinct was still there, the need to prove she could handle it. But then she remembered something the CEO had said. Being strong does not mean you never need support. She picked up her phone, not to ask for money, not to ask him to fix her problem, just to be honest. "I have been thinking about what you said," she typed slowly. "I realized I spend so much time trying to appear okay that I forget it is okay to admit when things are difficult." The CEO read the message carefully. Then he replied, "That is not weakness. That is honesty." Emily felt her eyes become emotional, not because she was sad, because those words gave her permission to stop pretending. For years, she believed strength meant carrying everything alone. Now she was beginning to understand something different. Strength could also mean accepting kindness. That night, the CEO looked at his phone one more time before leaving his office. He knew their lives were completely different. Different worlds, different circumstances. But somehow, a wrong number had created a connection neither of them expected. And the most surprising part was not that he wanted to help Emily. It was that she had already changed something inside him. The man who once believed every problem had a financial solution was beginning to understand a deeper truth. Some problems do not need money first. They need compassion. And sometimes the person who needs to learn that lesson most is the one who thought he already knew everything. The days continued to pass, and the connection between Emily and the stranger became something neither of them expected. It was still built on simple things. A morning message, a question about Lily, a few honest words at the end of a long day. Nothing dramatic, nothing planned. But sometimes the smallest moments are the ones that quietly change people. For Emily, those conversations became a reminder that she was more than her struggles, more than the bills on her kitchen table, more than the responsibilities she carried every day. She was still a person with dreams, a person who deserved kindness. One afternoon, Emily sat with Lily at a small neighborhood park. The sun was warm. Children played nearby. Parents laughed together on benches. Emily watched Lily take small steps while holding onto her hand. Her daughter looked happy, and for a moment, Emily allowed herself to simply enjoy the day. She took a picture and sent it to the stranger. Lily had a good day today. A few minutes later, her phone lit up. She looks happy. Emily smiled. She is. She makes everything worth it. The reply came shortly after. I think you make everything worth it for her too. Emily stared at the message. Those words stayed with her. Because mothers often saw what they failed to do. The missed opportunities. The difficult moments. The things they wished they could provide. But sometimes someone else could see the love they were giving. The CEO looked at the picture Emily had sent. Not because it was a perfect image. It was not. There was no luxury. No expensive background. No carefully created moment. It was simply a mother and daughter enjoying an ordinary afternoon. And somehow it felt more meaningful than many of the events he had attended throughout his life. That evening, the CEO sat in his office reviewing documents. A major business decision was waiting for him. Usually, he would have focused only on numbers, only on results. But before making the final choice, he stopped. He thought about Emily, about the way she spoke, the way she cared, the way she found gratitude even when life was difficult. And he realized something. A person's value was never determined by what they had. It was revealed by what they gave. Meanwhile, Emily was facing another choice. She had received an opportunity to take on additional work hours. It could help her financially, but it would also mean less time with Lily. She sat at the kitchen table that night, thinking carefully. The old version of herself would have immediately said yes. Work harder, sleep less, carry more. That was how she had survived. But now she was beginning to understand something. Strength was not only about how much a person could carry, it was also about knowing what truly mattered. She shared her thoughts with the stranger. I do not want Lily to only remember that I worked hard. I want her to remember that I was there. The CEO read the message slowly, because that sentence revealed everything about Emily. She was not chasing an easier life. She was protecting the important parts of the life she already had. He replied, "That is something many people forget. They spend years building a future and forget to live in the present." Emily smiled. It was strange. The person giving her advice did not know her entire story, and she did not know his. Yet somehow they understood each other. Later that night, the CEO stood near his office window. He looked at the city below. Thousands of people were living thousands of different stories. Some were celebrating, some were struggling, some were quietly hoping tomorrow would be better. For years, he had believed success meant reaching the highest point. Now he wondered if success was something else. Maybe it was about how a person made others feel. Maybe it was about noticing the people who were usually overlooked. Maybe the most important message he had received in years was never supposed to reach him, but somehow it did. Across the city, Emily placed her phone beside her bed. She looked at the conversation one last time before sleeping. She still did not know who he was. She only knew that someone had reminded her she was not invisible. And somewhere else, the billionaire CEO realized that the woman who accidentally entered his life had already given him something priceless. A different way to see the world. The message that started everything was still there. A simple conversation. A few honest words. A connection that neither Emily nor the billionaire CEO had expected. But as the days passed, one question remained. Would this connection survive if the truth was finally revealed? Emily never asked about his life. She never searched his name. She never tried to discover who he was. And that was exactly what made their conversations different. To her, he was not a billionaire. He was not a powerful executive. He was simply someone who listened. Someone who reminded her that she did not have to carry every burden alone. One evening, Emily sat at her kitchen table while Lily played nearby. She looked at the phone in her hand. For the first time, she realized something. She knew almost nothing about him. She knew his thoughts, his kindness, the way he saw the world. But she did not know his name, not his full name, not his story. She smiled slightly. "You know a lot about me," she typed. "But I know almost nothing about you." The message was sent. Across the city, the CEO looked at those words. He knew this moment would eventually come. The truth. The part of himself he had avoided sharing. Because he understood something. The moment Emily learned who he was, everything could change. People always changed when they discovered his identity. Their words became more careful. Their expectations became different. Their kindness sometimes became something else. But Emily had been different from the beginning. She had spoken to him without knowing his position, without knowing his wealth, without wanting anything from him. He stared at the message. Then he finally answered. "My name is Daniel Hayes." Emily read the reply. A few seconds passed. Then another message arrived. "I should probably tell you that I am the CEO of Hayes Global." Emily stopped. Her eyes moved back to the screen. Hayes Global. The name sounded familiar. Very familiar. She quickly searched online. And there it was. News articles. Business magazines. Photos. A man standing beside world leaders and executives. A billionaire CEO. The same person she had been casually texting. Emily placed the phone down. Her first feeling was not excitement. It was uncertainty. She thought about every conversation. Every time she complained about a difficult day. Every time she mentioned her worries. She wondered if he had only been kind because he felt sorry for her. That thought bothered her. Because she did not want pity. She wanted to be seen as a person. She picked up the phone again. "I did not know who you were." Daniel looked at the message. "I know. That means our conversations were different." He understood what she meant. Because that was the reason he had waited. "I never wanted you to talk to me differently because of my name." Emily stared at those words. And slowly she smiled. Because that was the same person she had been speaking with all along. The title was different. The bank account was different. But the kindness was the same. Daniel continued, I want you to know something. I never saw your message as a request for money. Emily read the sentence carefully. I saw it as a person asking for a moment of understanding. Those words stayed with her because they confirmed something important. The stranger who answered her message had never been trying to save her. He had simply been willing to see her. Later that night, Emily sat beside Lily's bed. She watched her daughter sleep peacefully. A few weeks earlier, she had felt completely alone. Now, her situation was not magically perfect. The challenges were still real, but something inside her had changed. She no longer believed she had to face everything by herself. Across the city, Daniel looked out at the lights below his office. He had spent years building a company, creating success, chasing achievements. But the most meaningful connection of his life began with a message that was never meant for him. A mistake, a wrong number, a few honest words, and a reminder that sometimes, the people who change our lives are the ones we never expected to meet.